We'll sit in uncomfortable silence here for a little bit. I'm disappointed. How are y'all doing? Waiting for everybody to get in here. Hopefully everybody's doing good on this fine Thursday afternoon. What's up, everybody? We got quite a bit to talk about today. Some important map updates, a little bit of a prediction on what's about to happen. We're going to talk about a lot of things. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. So hopefully everybody is doing good. Tomorrow, I don't know if I'll be doing a live stream. I might be fixing some shit over at my friend's house. So might be doing that tomorrow. So we'll see if I can get back and do a live stream. But all right. I think we got enough people in here. We can start to get started. Yeah, I heard you guys talking about the mousetrap. I don't know what that is exactly. The mousetrap reference. I don't know what that is. Hola, hola, everybody. All right, let's get into it. We're just going to start with the good old map. The good old mappy map. All right. Oops. Okay. So I'm just going to talk about some strikes we've seen. I'll show you guys some pictures of this. There was a strike in Odessa the other evening. It struck a large warehouse facility. Two Iskanders struck it. The building immediately caught fire. It was a huge fire. It burned for a couple hours. The entire facility was destroyed. The Russian, at least Russian sources, I don't know if the Russian MOD has claimed this, that the facility, there are videos. This is one of the companies that was transporting military equipment in civilian. I mean, you couldn't tell the difference between what they were transporting these vehicles in and like civilian 18-wheelers. I don't know what you guys call them, semi-trucks, with the truck trailer. So there was already evidence that this company was running guns, basically vehicles, weapons for Ukraine. They were disguising them in civilian trailers and then pulling them across the country. The warehouse facility was hit. It caught fire, huge fire, burned, and then everything burned down. So, it's up to you. I don't think that the Russians are just wasting Iskanders randomly on random targets. I don't think they're wasting missiles on civilians because there's no need for that. It's much easier for the Russians to just win the war by striking military targets and not pissing off the civilian population. If they just start killing a bunch of civilians and targeting civilians outright, what's going to happen? The international community is going to come to the rescue of Ukraine because of the horrible way that Russia is behaving in the country. So I'm going to go ahead and guess that Russia has constant drone coverage over Odessa. They were watching vehicles come in that they had tracked. They ended up targeting the facility. The whole thing burned down. So I'm going to go ahead and say that was probably a military target that was struck, but that's up to you. And the point of me talking about this is not just for this one event. Basically, daily now we're seeing Iskander strikes in the Kharkov region, Odessa, Dnipropetrovsk, Zaporozhye, Kryvyi Rog, all of these places see constant, first off, reconnaissance drones. There is about a gap like this around Ukraine right now where drones just fly around freely like that. Where Russian drones just kind of skirt around and they don't run into air defense. They can do, it's the ISR is improving so much because Ukrainian air defense is degraded and they're not shooting at individual Orlan drones now, like Orlan 10s. So those drones are just hovering, acquiring information, targeting data, stuff like that, sending it back. And then we're seeing strikes in Odessa, Nikolaev, Kryvyi Rog, Dnipropetrovsk, Zaporozhye, obviously the frontline cities like Kramatorsk in the east. Kharkov, Sumy, Chernigov, these regions. So um, it's getting to the point where I really don't think people understand the number of munitions that are being expended by the Russian side when they are comparing, Ukrainian capabilities to Russian capabilities. The Ukrainians receive what, 100 ATACMs? The Russians launch. I mean, yesterday they launched 4 Iskanders in one night. Um, that's like one large ATACMS attack, right? I mean, the Ukrainian air defense is much more degraded than Russian air defense. If you look at the attack on the airfield where they destroyed the S-400 or S-300, depending on how you classify the vehicles, I think that it was an S-300 just based on the 2 bars on the back of the vehicles in that picture we saw. But S-400, S-300 doesn't make much of a difference when we're talking about an air defense battery getting destroyed. The part that is important is the fact that Ukraine expended 12 ATACMs in that attack, with a few of them getting through, and that's a common thing. If you look at the Iran attack against Israel, they had to launch hundreds of missiles or hundreds of drones and missiles to oversaturate and then penetrate the Israeli air defense. So and U.S. air defense and Jordanian air defense and stuff like that. So um, the fact that Russia doesn't, there are no Iskanders being intercepted on the front lines right now. They hit their target every time they launch. Means that they don't have to launch 12 rockets. So the Russian use of missile munitions is not only more efficient than the Ukrainians, but they also have a higher quantity. They have their own production rates, and so people are I've had people in my DMs talking about, oh, ATACMS is so scary, this, that, and the other, and I'm like, they gave him 100 guys. If they gave him 300, right? If you give them 300 ATACMs, that's still not enough to change the war. That's what hits Ukraine every month, it seems like. Maybe not 300, but a decent amount of missiles, right? Say in 3 months, Ukraine gets hit by 300 missiles. Like, that's there is no balance there. If Ukraine isn't suffering immense damage from these missile strikes, I mean, they are, but in the way that they can continue operating, how do people think that the Ukrainian missile strikes are going to somehow degrade Russia's military capability when they have even while they have their own production of everything? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. All right. Somebody asked what the yellow scribbles on my map are. If it's in the category presentation, it's for what I'm about to talk about. So, all right, we'll move on to the map. Here, east, I guess, northeast of Orchitny, the Russians have closed this pocket, captured this defensive fortification that was right here. The Ukrainians were forced to retreat. As you can see, the pressure on the flanks was pretty extreme. The entire town of Arkhangelsk has not been captured yet by the Russians. There is still this northern portion and these reservoirs where I think the Ukrainians have set up somewhat of a defensive line. It seems like the Russians are able to progress this way and this way, but are having a hard time moving directly north. So this will be the next little battle right here. I think the Russians are going to continue along this high ground. And the Russians are, as I talked about in my previous video, are likely going to expand about 10 kilometers over the next couple weeks and months and try to capture this ring road. It just depends on how much Ukrainian reserves are left. There are a bunch of unknowns here, so giving it an exact time doesn't really make sense. The way that they are moving right now, I would say that they'll reach this in weeks. The way that the war has traditionally gone, if things slow down, which I don't really see happening, but it's always a possibility. It could be a more drawn out battle. But if you look at the title, I titled it "A New Salient Forming," and this is where I think the majority of the Russian offensive that is coming over May is going to be focused. these lines down here towards Pokrovsk are broken outside of Orchitny. The Ukrainians cannot stabilize here. They are losing chunk day after day. They're losing defensive fortifications day after day. The flanks around Orchitny have now expanded greatly enough. A very popular Ukrainian source was on talking today. Not a doomer by any means. I'll do that so you guys can see the map a little bit better. Actually, I'll do this. Not a doomer by any means, but somebody who's been very accurate. Actually, he's kind of like an anti-doomer. He's kind of a coper, but that's okay. He came out today, and I posted it. You can go on my Telegram or Twitter and see it. That the ability for the Ukrainians to recapture Orchitny is now basically completely vanished. The Russians have control of their defensive fortifications around here. They control the high ground, and the flanks have expanded out so much that with what Ukraine has available currently in this area, there's no possibility of recapturing Orchitny, which has been the Ukrainian goal since the 115th abandoned positions here, and the Russians breached and broke through and then expanded this salient as much as they did. We also have this update, which I am now going to fix because I should have done it before, but I keep forgetting. So I'm just going to do this. But the Russians have been geolocated across the canal near Chasiv Yar, as I am removing right now the green zone, as this has been what I would consider consolidated, and it is shown like that on most maps. All right, Chasiv Yar. All right. Okay, so they're still having troubles entering into the micro district right here. This flank being captured does significant damage to the defense of this area. However, this area is a crow's nest. I talked about it in my subscriber post on Twitter. This is the crow's nest. It has high-rise buildings, which are now mostly destroyed, but basements. It has a decent sort of industrial-like area, not necessarily a deep industrial facility, but warehouses, stuff like that, probably basements. Makes for a good defensive point, and it's on the high ground. So the Russians need to shore up the flanks, and then this will fall once supply is almost impossible across the canal. But these two operations right here are not separate. They seem far away. They're actually not terribly far away when you actually look at it. They are 25 miles, like 40 kilometers. So the Russian goal here is to create another salient, and I know everybody is really like a lot of like the pro-Russian crowd has their hopes on an offensive from into Kharkov, which I don't necessarily think that's an impossibility. I think we could still see some pressure along this entire line up here to pull forces and fix Ukrainians along this line, but I don't think we're going to see a large offensive up here. I still have yet to see any proof. I've been looking for it. I don't see it, so I don't think that that's necessarily going to be an option, but creating the idea that it might be an option never hurts. And then more realistically, what I think the Russians are going to try to do is they are going to try to finish off the Donbass region over the summer, and maybe not Kramatorsk and Slavyansk and not the entirety, but the defensive fortification sector of the Donbass for the AFU. And what my good friend over there said, what are the yellow scribbles on your map? So I'm going to bring those up right now. This is what I think we could be looking at in the same amount of time that we saw Avdeevka fall. If you guys remember, Avdeevka looked a lot less red than it does now. And all of this expansion has come basically since February, which is, people forget that this is 3 months of Russian progress right here. You just see it every day, a little bit after a little bit, and you forget how much it actually is. So primarily what needs to happen on this northern flank, the Russians have already crossed the canal, so this is a big move. But what needs to happen is Klishchevka needs to fall. Once that happens, the Ukrainians will retreat behind the canal. And then the Russians will begin pushing over the canal and towards Stupochki, which is along the highway to Konstantinivka. Again, down here on the south, I talked about maintaining presence on this high ground and this high ground right here that runs along these two valleys, these two creek beds kind of right here, and these two reservoirs in between. There's a high ground right here and over here. The Russians are going to continue pushing out along that, as well as along the railroad. I just didn't color that in because I do think the overall goal in this direction is Pokrovsk and Mihrad, just to disrupt supply, because this is the main logistics hub of now the entire southern region. Konstantinivka is going to be getting pressured soon too. So this, it's getting very difficult to keep all of these areas supplied. And now the Russians have pushed out far enough that Pokrovsk is in and Mihrad is in artillery range, like barrel artillery. So today I saw a video, I just reposted it on my Twitter. You can go check that out, of a Orlan 10 drone flying around and acquiring targeting information for ammo trucks that are in this region, and then they are subsequently hit by the Russian artillery and destroyed. So Ukrainian logistics is going to become much more difficult in this area. And once this road is cut, the Ukrainians will have a much more difficult time keeping Toretsk and New York supplied. And these are the last bastions of the 8-year defense fortifications. So these are the two remaining cities that have Avdeevka-like defenses. Krasnohorivka was one of the last ones, but it is falling. And as soon as this eastern area falls, all of the defense fortifications that were here since 2015, 16 go away. And then lastly is New York and Toretsk is the last area of original front line on the map. So it should be interesting. We will see how this progresses out. I think that we could be looking at something like this by June. That makes sense to me, because I think the Russians are going to activate their offensive in late May. And as soon as that happens, I don't think the Ukrainians are going to be able to respond to that amount of pressure from the Russians. So, all right, got a question here. You heard about the possibility of Saudi Arabia getting nukes on the condition they normalize relations with Israel. Also about so I've heard about, honestly, I don't know. The Middle East, I think if everybody has nukes, everybody will be a little bit more careful. Does that mean you want to give everybody nukes? No, obviously. But if Israel has nukes and they feel invincible because of those nukes, maybe everybody else in the region should also have nukes, just so Israel doesn't feel like they have this invincibility card where they can do anything they want. And if you threaten their statehood, you will get nuked. That mutually assured destruction. But it's also risky because you're giving countries that have never possessed nuclear weapons, and that's always a dangerous thing to do, especially because if these places are not stable, like if Iran comes into economic troubles over the next 10 years and they have a nuke, you could see a violent regime change in the country, especially with all the Western pressure being put on them. And that could, devolve the situation. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying something like that, where you have not the most stable areas of the world receiving nuclear weapons, can always lead to greater risks. Big air offensive soon. Like I said, I don't think it's necessarily going to be a big aero offensive. I think it's going to be more of a concentrated, focused offensive where the Ukrainians are going to have to either retreat or do the same bleeding nonsense that they do, and they just don't have the ability to do that. So it's going to either be, I think what it's going to be is retreats. I think you're going to start seeing the Ukrainian army retreating, because they're just not going to be able to stop Russian advance, especially now that we're getting back behind the established lines of defense. There's not much back here, guys. This was never where the battle was supposed to be taking place. If the battle takes place back here, you've basically lost the war for the Ukrainians in the east. So we'll see. We'll see what they can do. But I do not have strong hopes for the Ukrainian defensive locations back behind. All right. I have a couple things to show you, so I'm going to go over to some of the articles I have. So this was the new talking point today. No thanks, Axios. Um, the U.S. accuses Russia of using chemical weapons in Ukraine. The U.S. State Department formally accused Russia of violating an international ban on chemical weapons throughout its unprovoked invasion. Unprovoked, no provocation there. Why it matters. In addition to the accusations, the State Department of the Treasury announced sanctions on over 280 individuals and entities connected to Russia's military, industrial base, and financial systems. Wow, more sanctions, guys. I wonder what they're gonna do next. Like at a certain point, do you like these guys? These people have to be looking themselves in the mirror and going, "We are just making sanctions the most useless thing on the planet." They've beat it to death. This is the dead. You're watching the dead horse. It's mush because they've beaten this thing so aggressively, and what it's not doing anything anymore. Nobody's even scared of it. Oh, dude, I have terrible takes on anti-genocide demonstrations. No, I don't, dork. You are just emotional and a little woman, and I don't want to hear it. I support those protests. I just think that people holding up Hamas flags when they're LGBTQ, it has to be some of the stupidest shit I've ever seen in my entire life. There are also idiots and there are also paid actors in those protests. If you disagree with that, that's okay. You're wrong. All right. The chemical weapons thing, though. The chemical weapons is this is a classic precursor to intervention. You know, it's just another thing, just like the nuclear, the drone strikes on the nuclear facility in Zaporozhye. They blamed the Russians for striking their own nuclear facility. Okay, like that. Okay, and then the Russians, if the Russians were using it as a precursor for something, they never used it ever. So it doesn't even make sense. I have no idea what, but that's the same. That chemical weapons stuff is the same thing. All right, next article. It's just funny that all the news agencies come out because the State Department comes out and says, "Oh, they're using chemical weapons," which I think they're talking about like tear gas. Here we have Macron, little angry Napoleon man, Macron, saying, "I'm not ruling anything out." Again, pushing this narrative that if the front lines break, French troops are going to be sent to Ukraine. Do it. At this point, just send them. Just do it so we can stop this fake pandering nonsense. This is crap. Macron is never going to send troops. The French people are never going to accept that. This is fantasy land beyond fantasy land. If you said British troops were maybe going to be on the ground, I would say, okay, like that might make a little bit of sense, maybe. But I mean, not like they're going to do anything, but the British seem like they would go to that extreme. Macron does not seem like that kind of individual. The French people are not interested in that at all. He's dealing with domestic issues. There's a lot going on, man. And this is that bolstering crap that he did a couple months ago. Every time he gets in trouble, I think he starts to deflect towards Ukraine again, which I mean, none of what he has said has come true about Ukraine. So good news for the West. The Abrams finally reached Moscow, but in questionable condition. Yeah, I posted that the other day and people were salty, bro. That was one of my biggest posts of all time, was just that it's a nice day for an outside museum or an outside exhibit or something like that. And people got so mad, dude. People are it's so easy to get under people's skin. It's so incredibly easy. People are so soft. So funny. All right. So yeah, no French troops in Ukraine. If this happens, I will eat a freaking shoe on live stream, guys. I will literally do it. I will get one of my shoes, I'll cut a piece off, and I'll chew it up and eat it, because this would be. I would be happy to eat that shoe though, because that would be the wake up call that the West would need. That would be the wake up call that the West would need. That first hit, man, would not be good. All right. Do I have another article? I don't think so. I don't think so. Okay. All right. If you guys have some stuff that you want to talk about, we can go ahead and talk about some stuff. I'm going to be making my Patreon episode probably today. It'll probably be up by this weekend. And that episode is going to be a bunch of content that I can't show on here. So all of the times I say, hey, you guys can go to my Telegram or my Twitter to see the video content. I'm going to be going over some of it. Some of the bigger hits, both Russian and Ukrainian. I'm going to cover both sides, any of the big hits, anything where I can talk about the weapon, the aspects of the weapon, and how they're interacting on the battlefield, stuff like that. It's going to be a little bit more of a nerdy deep dive, and there's probably going to be some like dead bodies and stuff. So if you guys are interested in that, go follow me on Patreon. You can find that link in the description. Also follow me on Telegram and Twitter. You can find all my stuff there, and find me on like and subscribe my video on YouTube, please. That's the easiest way. All right, let's get to some questions. If you guys have questions, go ahead and throw them out there. Thoughts on the anti-Semitism law? I haven't even read it, guys. I'm very out of touch. I guess I'm not out of touch, but I'm just not hyper focused on U.S. domestic stuff. If that's a U.S. domestic thing, I don't know. Is it in Israel? I don't even know where it is. I haven't seen it. So for me to comment on it would be inappropriate. But if it's anti-Semitism, as in the way the Israelis talk about anti-Semitism, where you can't criticize Israel or it's anti-Semitic, that's not anti-Semite. That's not anti-Semitism. But you should do live on X like yesterday. Great platform. I am on X right now. I'm pretty sure I'm live. Let me go check. I hope so. I scheduled it. Yeah, I'm live right now on X. I do both. What is my favorite Russian weapon system in the war? Favorite to see get used, or favorite in terms of like what it does? I don't know, because there's like rare weapons that I like to see get used. I really do like. I mean, like is a weird thing. I find it incredibly interesting when you see cruise missiles or ballistic missiles or drones in their terminal phases coming into a target, and that goes for everything. I mean, I enjoy that with like HIMARS too. That final phase and watching the CEP of a weapon and seeing that sort of stuff, that really interests me. Let me think. What weapon system do I think is probably? I really liked the suicide tanks, the ISIS style tanks. You just fill them up with bombs and det cord, and then press on the gas and go. I thought it would have been really cool if those would have been expanded upon a little bit more and made into more of a drone. I think that with the fortifications Ukraine has, sending in armored vehicles like that full of explosives to disrupt a fortification is a very smart idea. Just a really big ground-based bomb. I haven't seen any of those recently, though. So, and then like my favorite Western weapon that I like to see. I mean, you don't see them in Ukraine, but I love to see the stealth bombers. I think those things are they're sexy. The US spends a lot of money on what they build, way too much money, but sometimes they really make their aircraft look like just beautiful pieces of art. So let's see. Do you think the Ukrainians had to pull troops from other parts of the front to reinforce Orchitny? Yes, absolutely. There are two areas right now where the Ukrainians are holding desperately. So I'm gonna hide that. So Architney is a area where they are trying to frantically to stabilize, and they haven't been able to. The Russians, and remember, this is not just little towns that are being captured. The towns don't matter. They've been bombed. They're gone. What matters is the defense fortifications in the area, like this one. Yeah, see, this defense fortification right here was the one that had not fallen yet. It's expanded even further than this on this map, but you can see how it's not the actual cities, right? These cities don't, the towns don't matter. It's all of the fortifications that run through the cities. You can't even see most of them, but you can see here that there's fortifications through the trees. The whole area, guys, is just a maze. It's just a big maze. So when you're looking at a map, especially old satellite maps, you can kind of lose a sense of what is being fought over, and it's a really good idea to go to like let me see, I could bring up uh, they have the front line, they have the fortifications, I think. uh, uh, I don't know where their thing is. But anyway, there's some maps you can go to, different mappers. You can go and you can look at the actual fortification maps. I don't have them on mine, but some people do. I think Deep State does, and some other maps. But you can go and look, and you can see how the Russians are fighting. It's never for the towns. I mean, sometimes it is. Like Orchitny was important, but there was also a large defensive fortification right on this side of Orchitny that is, I'm always looking for them. I always find new ones too. Anyway, this is where the 115th abandoned their positions, and that's why the Orchitny whole salient collapsed, or the whole area. So, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even answer your question. Yes, so they had to pull from. I know they pulled some from Seversk. I know they've been pulling from the south. They've been sending in territorial guard units. They're also bringing in troops to Krasnohorivka, trying to stabilize the situation, which I think they kind of have a little bit. Or the Russians just kind of pause in certain areas. I think the Russians like attack here. As soon as the Ukrainians move, they begin attacking in a different area. Ukrainians move, they begin attacking in a different area, and they're just pulling. And then while the Ukrainians are rotating, they strike them, like we've seen, and stuff like that. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the area has stabilized, only that potentially the Russians have stopped pushing. But it also could mean that the Ukrainians brought in enough reinforcements to stabilize the situation. So the 79th here has been reinforced. I don't know what is happening here. It was the 115th, and then the 47th was thrown back in, and then I hope that the 47th has been taken out because they were in bad shape. But there's nothing back here. There's no real defenses back here. So once the Russians get behind this, they should have a much easier time operating out in the open. The towns out here are basically non-existent as well. Yeah, so the Russians could be very close to a massive breakthrough. And if that's the case, Macron better stand by his word and send French troops in. I love people, dude. Heard about the prototype manta ray sub drone the U.S. just revealed. Looks like a B-2 Spirit bomber in water. Yeah, no, that thing's cool. It looks huge, so probably not going to be too difficult to spot. But submersible drones are definitely the future. So, yeah, soon we'll have submarine battles, and there will be nobody underwater, and it'll be cool. Did I miss anybody? Did you see Russian General Surovikin coming back? I've heard rumors. I don't know if he's coming back. I don't. I mean, I have no idea. That's just a rumor right now, but it could be the case. We don't know. All right. I saw somebody say, Scott, you should keep your ignorant views about protests out of the stream. Quit there and won't be watching until it's moved on a bit. Can't deal with your stupidity. Well, if you can't listen to an idea and ingest it and take it in and understand what it is and understand maybe the reasoning behind it, then it's not in fact me who's stupid. I might have bad ideas, that's fine, but I back up my bad ideas with at least a logical argument. You just saying that I shouldn't talk about them. I don't support the genocide. I don't support Israel. I don't support Zionists. I don't support any of those things. I don't know what you're talking about. But there are paid actors at those protests. It's documented. You can see it. There's multiple high level what I would consider agitators for certain groups. They do this all over the world, guys. This is what's happening in Georgia right now. It's the exact same thing. It is I mean, it's a foreign, it's the US, an NGO group in Georgia that is putting on these protests and calling it a Russian law. No, it is an anti-US law, and that's why they're so mad about it. Same thing goes in the protests in the US. There are two lobbies here that are fighting. You have an anti-Israeli lobby who is like mostly Democrats, right? And then you have the Israeli lobby, which are more Republicans. A lot of the federal government is connected to the Israeli lobby. They're very large. These protests are not organic. I don't care what you say. They have schedules. They have whole things. These are sanctioned events basically that are put on by one group, and then another group doesn't like it. So then they're kind of battling it out, and it's this weird thing. You can believe in the cause, but don't be stupid enough to ignore the reality. Okay, that's the gist of it. And if you don't like my stream, get the fuck out. See if I care. Bro, I would be doing this in front of a mirror if nobody was in here right now. I would just be sitting talking to myself like a schizophrenic person, and it would be great. And I'd have a great stream. A great stream of consciousness to myself through the mirror. Any new Russian progress near Seversk? No, there has been no Russian progress near Seversk. There's also not a lot of pushing in that area either. So there's not. It's not. I mean, I would not expect progress in that area until some more intensive offensive operations occur. By the way, I DM'd you. The mousetrap meme is funny. If you want to show it on the stream, okay, I'll take a look at it. I'll see what it is. I dropped my phone. Apparently the Ukes hit some rail station power stations for rail. I saw Intel Schizo autisming out about it and how the Russian rail line infrastructure is now doomed like the Ottomans. That dude, bro, how many wrong things has he said over this entire war? Do you know what the Russians are really, really, really good at? Repairing railroads. That's like the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. They have both sides, Ukraine and Russia, have hidden armies of railroad workers that are constantly fixing railroads. It's such a weird copy thing to hold on to, but when you have nothing else. The Ivano-Drohivka high ground, it will be hard for Russia to bypass it. I don't know exactly where that is. Right here. Yeah, I was going to say, is that Seversk? Yeah, this area is just terrainy, if that makes sense. Sort of mountain, not mountainous, but hilly over here. It's just rocky and kind of hard to get through. So yeah, this salient is difficult, and there's a reason why it's held so long and been one of the bastions of Ukrainian defense for a very, very long time. It's a good area to defend, and the qualified individuals defending it are doing a very good job. All right. Scott, I think you're correct that the protesters are being used as a distraction from the actual horrors, and the counter protests are definitely funded, but I think most of the protesters are motivated. Most protests are like that, right? You have a small group who is orchestrating the whole thing, And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that these people are idiots, but you have useful idiots, right? People that don't understand what's going on, but they're going along with what you want them to go along with because you have they have a reason to go along with it. But what I'm saying is the protests are organized, funded, and orchestrated by a group or a larger group. Same with the counter protests, bro. Those is the people waving American flags out there, and then both of them chanting "fuck Joe Biden" has to be like the funniest shit I've ever seen in my entire life. But yeah, no, it's the same in Georgia. You have a bunch of young liberals, a bunch of very emotionally manipulated and highly propagandized to people, just like U.S. liberals in college campuses and stuff like that. And they think that Hamas is good. And I mean, not all of them, but some of them are like waving Hamas flags and stuff. That is wrong. If you guys think that that is right, I'm sorry. I have a bridge to sell you outside of Maryland. It's great. Um, they you should not be supporting Hamas, a organization like that, doing what they did. Just like you should not be supporting the IDF. The IDF has done way worse stuff than Hamas in the last 6 months. I don't support either, guys. They're both not organizations that you should be waving the flag of. So, like I said, while I do support the idea behind the protest, I see the protest as just being manipulated and taken by a different group for a different political means, just like every single protest ever always is. This is not something new. I support both. Fucking based. How should Palestinians defend themselves? Do they have a standing army? No, bro. The Palestinians don't defend themselves. They can throw rocks and stuff. They can try that. I mean, Hamas has done a pretty good job of doing exactly what they wanted to do. Hamas went out of Palestine or of Gaza, knowing that what they were going to do was going to likely cause the destruction of Gaza. That's exactly what they wanted. I can't support that. The IDF took the bait and went right along with it, which is it's just as evil. It's even more evil, probably, but they're both horrible. We need King Baldwin and Sultan to return to bring. Yeah, I feel that. I read that they will make cops and robbers, cowboys and Indians, tag and snowball fights illegal in the U.S. What? Bro, I'm gonna be the top snowball salesman, snowball arms dealer in the country. I have the best snowballs. I don't even know what that means. Do you worry about someone that disagrees with you creating a deep fake video of you trying to get you kicked off YouTube? Dude, like honestly, how do you guys even come up with that idea? Like, who has the energy for that? If I disagree with somebody, I don't listen to them. Why? What is this obsession with somebody you don't agree with? Obsessing over them, fantasizing about them, destroying them. It's the weirdest. Like, I don't get that mindset at all. If I don't like you, I don't care about your opinion. I won't listen to you. Is it so hard? Is life so hard for people to like? I really hope somebody doesn't make a deep fake of me, but people have been making fake pictures of me for 2 years now. I see something. Some of them are funny. I laugh at some of them, but some of them are just, yeah, it's just, I don't care. And now talk about the Chechens being active. Are the Chechens active? I saw them on the northern border. They were doing the border guard services, and they've been doing a very good job. They stopped the Belgorod incursion dead in its tracks, kind of made them look foolish in that regard. I've seen a lot of cross-border stuff with drones from Akhmat, but I haven't seen them active anywhere on the front. Maybe I missed something. If you know where they're active, let me know. I don't. I am not aware. How can you get somebody kicked off YouTube with a deep fake? I don't know. They would have to have access to my account, right? Because it would have to be something that I posted. I'll probably get kicked off for what I say. I'll probably get kicked off before anybody has time to make a deep fake. Is Russia performing their best since the war began? I don't know if I would say best. The Russian military as a whole is performing much better than they were in 2022 in terms of like their deep strike capability, ISR, time on target, stuff like that has improved dramatically. We're talking minutes instead of hours now. Yeah, just the reconnaissance has become so much better. Obviously, you have a bunch more experience. I don't know if Russia's performing better, like their actual performance on the battlefield might not be better, but the overall quantity and quality of their materials and glide bombs improvements and stuff like that have made Russia perform better. But I don't know if it's necessarily like the Russian military performing better or just the Russian military industrial complex finally hitting the Russian military and then that improving the performance of the Russian military. I mean, obviously cause and effect, but I will destroy Kalibrated. Do it. Do it. Just do it already. Get it over with. I'm asking. Yeah. Yeah. I just think they're up on the northern border. I haven't seen them anywhere else. They're not that numerous. Like they can only fight for a short period of time before they're needing rotation, just because they're maybe a brigade. So it's not like when you see like the Russian different groupings, there are multiple brigades and armies in these different groupings, whereas the Akhmat forces is just one small region, and that's their like military envoy kind of deal. I did find Papaznaya, guys. I was looking right at it. I don't know why. I was looking right at it. The whole time I was looking right at it. And I just couldn't find the word Papaznaya. I was like, where is it? I'm like, it's Zelote. I know it's around here. I just could not find it. It's right there. Sorry, guys. Found it. Do you think that the world is going to be more peaceful after de-dollarization? I think probably not. I think that the US will go down kicking and screaming if that's the case, and it's not going to be pretty for a good portion of the world. Very far away from the US, but not pretty for a good portion of the world. That's a big change. That is a historic century defining moment that would cause a very large disruption in the power dynamics of on the globe. It would be a very significant event. Scott, if you're deep faked, you've made it to the big time. Hell yeah, brother. Yeah, I just don't care about any of that. Like, I don't care about it at all. People threatening me, I just don't care. People like the doxing stuff, I just don't care. Most of it is not even like accurate. A lot of it is from when I was like 12. It was like my Facebook page and stuff, like my house and my childhood home and stuff like that, which I don't care. It's just weird. All that stuff is so weird. Obsessing over somebody you hate is like a pathological issue that you should really, really dissect and work out, because you should never spend time on people that you fundamentally disagree with. And I don't mean that in you should not spend negative energy focused on those people. If you're debating them or you're trying to convince them of something, that's different. But that negative energy where you're obsessed about them, you want to destroy them, this, that, and the other, it's very unhealthy. And I just feel like people should not do that, right? All right, guys. Sorry, giving you my my 2 cents, my little life lessons. Yeah, no, and I and oh, oops. This person says hating on somebody is a datal attraction. I think you might say fatal. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's it's uh it's just it's an odd thing. Like just obsessing over people you hate. It will never make sense to me. Ever. I I obsess over people I like. That's what I do. I get overly attached to the people I like. Do you think they are going to come for Kharkov, or is that a bluff? I don't think it's a bluff. I don't think I mean, they've said that they're going to make a sanitary zone, which I think will happen. They haven't put a date on it. Nobody from the Russian government has said they're going for Kharkov. I mean, they've made like hints at it, but they've never given a timeline, never given anything, and I haven't seen any evidence. So I wouldn't really necessarily call it a bluff. I think it will happen eventually. I just don't think the timing is right now. Why go for a huge city like that when there's still a Ukrainian army who's willing to die in the east for no-name towns, right? You can destroy 30 towns in the east and destroy a majority of the Ukrainian army, and then you don't have to destroy Kharkov, Odessa, Chernigov, Sumy, because there won't be an army left to go fight in there. That's the goal. That's why the bridges are still up. If you guys think that the bridges can't be taken down, that's not true. You could destroy those bridges. You could crater them so bad that there's no way that you can go over them, and the entire Ukrainian army would be trapped. But you don't really want that, at least right now. At least until you have the Ukrainian army in retreat, and then you do that. When do you think this conflict may end? 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 years? I've always said 2026. I think 2026 is the maximum amount of time that Ukraine could struggle this conflict out, just with their manpower issues mostly. No matter how much money they get, you're never going to solve those issues. So if they fight maximum with maximum effort and without regard for the future of their country, I would say 2026. But if we see some big moves here, it could be much sooner, and we could be looking at a settlement. I wouldn't say negotiated, but a settlement. Yeah, their economy too. All right, let's see. When do you think Ukrainian conscription age will be lowered to 18? I don't think it will ever be lowered to 18. It might be lowered to 19, and that could very well happen in the next 6 months. It just depends on how well their next round of mobilization goes. From what I've heard, they're struggling greatly to produce enough manpower, so we could see it. Very well could see it, but that move right there will be the end of any domestic support for the war. And that's going to be a very, very difficult thing to sell. All right, guys, that's where I'm going to hop off. If you guys want to follow me on Telegram, Twitter. Links are in my YouTube video description. If you want to support me, guys, remember, you can go over to my Patreon. I will likely be recording a video today or tomorrow for my Patreon. Probably will go up this weekend. I am busy this weekend, and I will be busy this next week. So be on the lookout for updates about live streams. I'm going to be out of town, in fact, not this week, but in a couple weeks. So I'm going to potentially be doing videos from an alternative location. We'll see. But yeah, I hope everybody takes care. Be safe and enjoy your Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Bye, everybody.